menswear is such an interesting phase in India right now. And if you see, a lot of women's wear designers are now getting into menswear and vice versa. So, and the distinction between menswear and women's wear is, there's only a fine line right now. Having said that, it's a bit challenging because it's very difficult to sell menswear. The problem is that because of the pay disparity, right, within industries, I guess that's why Bollywood has risen above everything else, because the amount of money that Bollywood gets you, no one else does. So you have to look at it from a financial perspective as opposed to anything else. No, I talk to a lot of celebrity stylists and they're very happy, and they also, you know how like they also hate the fact that editorial stylists call them celebrity stylists. It's almost like putting them in a bracket, right?
Yeah.
And so that's always the argument I have with them, and they're always like, you guys don't need to put us in a bracket and stuff. But to me, it's also more costume design as opposed to styling, and that's a very different field altogether, right? Because if you're styling someone for a certain event based on the brief that the event is, then it's, according to me, more costume design as opposed to styling. Everyone will be positive and has to be positive right now. That's the only way forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will be stuck. Unless you don't embrace the change. Yeah. I finally got an internship under Varun Rana, who was the then fashion features director of Harper's Bazaar. And my first 2 months was just, it was actually just getting coffee for everyone on the set and compiling Excel sheets and putting together contact databases for everyone, because magazines have events, and my job was to call up all the models and all the industry professionals and invite them for events. It was sometimes a bit overwhelming, and I was like, what am I doing here? And I left a paid job to do this internship. But I said, okay, if this is what I really want, I'll stick to it. Slowly and gradually, I became a freelancer for them. The freelancer in a magazine is when you're not on the masthead, you're put as a contributing person and you get a small amount, which an intern doesn't. So I became a freelancer for them, and I used to accompany them on shoots. Even though I was interning under the features team, I always asked them if I could go on the set and help in any which way out, which obviously meant dragging suitcases for the first 6 months. There was no other job. There was nothing else I did except for drag suitcases and go on style.com, which is Vogue Runway now, and go through all the designers A to Z and understand the brand aesthetic. And that was, I think, the first step, which because I wasn't a self-taught stylist. I wasn't a stylist. I hadn't studied styling as in my college. I had studied fashion design, and fashion, even though I had knowledge about fashion, styling required me to have different skills. So I think the first step was to go through all the designers, India, international, and understand the brand aesthetic. For example, when my senior stylist would tell me, we're doing a story on tailoring, right? Now, you cannot waste time and figure out, which designer should I go for sourcing? Rajesh Pratap does tailoring, Ashish Soni does tailoring. You have to be on your feet and be like, listen, I'll get you something from Rajesh Pratap. He does tailoring. So I think that's the kind of knowledge one has to have. And I think the first step is to sort of study all the designers, the history of all the designers and what they do and what they're known for and how the silhouettes have evolved over the years. So I think as a stylist also, you really need to understand which magazine or which brand are you working for. No two editions across the world work the same. Something could work for Vogue Paris or like Elle Paris or Elle UK, might not work for Elle India. Something could work for Elle Middle East, could very well work for Elle India. So I think it's very important to adapt to which magazine you're working for, and that only comes from understanding the history of the magazine and not just the Indian edition, because the editions in India are really young right now. The oldest fashion magazine is probably Elle, which is 20 years, but that's nothing when it comes to the history of fashion magazines. And I had studied the history of GQ and how they believed in masculinity from a different perspective. The whole idea of machoism / being a man in the early 2000s was different. It was only about wearing suits and being classic. But I guess now, because of gender neutral, people opening up a little bit more, LGBTQ rights coming into place, and because of social media, I think there's a sense of individuality there. People want to experiment, and men want to experiment as well. Everything that you do in fashion has to be relevant, because fashion, as the rest of the industries, drive everything what's happening around us. Now, if you see a lot of magazines, when they put Gucci, Dior, Louis Vuitton on the cover, it's an understood fact in the industry that those are big advertisers for the magazines, and you need to sort of feature them, give them, pay them back. And it's something that's not hidden. It's something that's not a secret. I think it works globally, and that's how magazines survive, because you need to sometimes give back to produce more creativity. And that's how I look at it. And the challenge lies on how to make it different. The first thing is to be positive, everyone. I think we're at a great time right now. If you remember, I always talk about what happened to the world when AIDS was a pandemic in the 80s, I think, and how it affected fashion. Support the young local talent or the local talent here, because until unless we don't come up as authorities to support them, the industry will collapse. It's important for everyone to think from a more local perspective. I think you must have read about it. A lot of fashion weeks across the world are now going to be fully digital, at least till the fall-winter season. The spring-summer 21, which is going to happen in September. All the fashion weeks are going digital, which also means less consumption for everyone, which also means a great, fantastic way to showcase your talent to all, even the younger designers online. Because it's no longer going to be about who's got more resources and who's got less resources.
And I just really wanted to say thank you, because I think it's been a great learning experience for the students here. It was really good having you.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you.